First time here?
Me? No, I used to live here for almost 10 years.
So what brings you back?
I'm here for a wedding.
Marriage is for the gays, and you poor bastards, you can have it. It's a magical time.
What happens if I hurt Eddie? What makes you think you'll do that? Because it's what I do.
You stare, you're searching for an illusion that you know it's not there.
I went away to Colorado and everything was out of sight and out of mind. And now I'm back and then there it all is.
There what is?
Everything I thought I dealt with.
Sometimes you gotta leave things behind so you can move forward.
Say the word away, away, I will go. Say the word away, away, welcome. Say
Are you able to tell if it's gonna work or not?
Maybe I can tell who wants it more than the other one.
You've lost this sense of romance.
Will you ever actually in love with me? It would be nice to suddenly find something that makes sense. So what if we got together now? Maybe this has been staring us in the face the whole time.
You are actually scaring me right now.
Thanks, everybody. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations on what I think is a beautiful closing to a wonderful show.
Thank you.
Were you excited? What did you think when you found out that it wasn't going to be a season 3, that it was going to be a movie?
Well, I was severely disappointed to hear that we were canceled, but I was excited to get another shot at the character and the storylines.
Did you feel like you had any sort of personal feelings about where you wanted to see the character go or where you thought it could go?
Absolutely.
Did they talk to you? But did you talk to the writers about that, Michael and Andrew?
I didn't. I always felt like they had my best interest in mind, so.
Like they knew where it should go. You guys were all on the same page without talking about it.
They seem to have my back.
So where are we picking up with Richie?
We pick up, I guess, with all the characters a year later. Richie has left the barbershop that he works at, and he's now working out of a truck.
Instead of a food truck, it's a barbershop.
That's
truck.
right. Yeah.
I love it. I don't think I've ever actually seen that. I love that idea. It's such a sensitive show in the way that it's written and directed. The tone of the show is so sensitive and beautiful. Andrew Haigh is sort of a singular voice right now, working in movies with this and 45 Years and Weekend, really incredible works. What's it like when you guys are on set? What is the sort of main goal for the actors working with the writing and working with the director? Is it really finding reality as much as possible? Are you guys improvising, trying to find the truth between the lines or within the lines?
I mean, I think we're given a lot of freedom. We don't really need to improvise a lot because I think the scripts are usually pretty on point, and we have a lot of great material to work with. And I think, if anything, the chemistry among the cast is so effortless that we're just given sort of freedom to do what we do within the confines of the script and the scenes that they've given us. But Andrew Haigh, our director, really just lets us do what we do, and he kind of...
It all feels very natural.
Absolutely.
When you're watching it. Like, you guys handled and naturalistic dialogue can be handled well or not handled well, because in the sense that you could write naturalistic dialogue, you could write the way people actually talk. And if you don't have actors who know how to pull that off, it sounds very stiff and rigid and like the way people talk sometimes. But if you have actors who can make it feel very natural and make it work, which I think is actually a lot of work for an actor in many ways.
Well, I think the characters are always going through something very specific, and the writers are always give us circumstances that are playable and fun and interesting. So it never feels like I have to work to get somewhere. It always feels very effortless in a way, I think.
Now, I won't give away anything that happens between you and Jonathan Groff's character, but we will say, and I think it's kind of introduced at the beginning of the movie, you are kind of the great love. You are, whether or not it actually works out or not, you are the great love of this character.
Sure.
So what's it like to play the great love of another character?
Of Jonathan Groff.
Or specifically of Jonathan Groff, sure.
I don't know. I guess when we started with a pilot and a first episode of a series, you don't know where it's going to go. So I was just as curious, I guess, as audience members as to where the writers would take the stories. So I was always pleasantly surprised and excited when I, received the new scripts. But if anything, the characters, it's just such a rich, refreshing character. I had such a great time getting to take him on every time.
He's such an interesting character, I think, in contrast to Jonathan Groff's character, because so much of the show is about being a gay man and trying to understand commitment in a world that doesn't really, for so long, didn't really allow any kind of commitment for you. And Jonathan Groff's character is always called self-loathing and always having issues, I think, with his own sexuality that he's coming to terms with. And a year later, we kind of see that he has come to terms with some of these things. But your character, who's actually sort of is a minority in this group and in a minority in this world, is much more comfortable with his sexuality at times than Jonathan Groff's character.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people have had different reactions to the sort of central characters of the story, so it's exciting to be inhabiting a character that sort of is the moral compass of a lot of the story. But I can't think about it that way. I just have to think about it from the inside out and kind of approach things from that.
Talk about when you were first cast in Looking. Were you cast sort of in a chemistry test with Jonathan Groff? Because if they had any idea at the beginning that you were going to be this sort of long road love interest, I would imagine they'd want to make sure that that's extremely believable right off the bat.
I was the last person cast. I think they were already in San Francisco shooting the pilot.
But you've also, I just remembered, you've been a part of the project since it was a short film.
That's right.
Yeah.
I was part of a short film called Lorimer that was a sort of prototype for what became Looking. But I had to audition for the series, for the pilot, and I sort of got passed over, I think, at first. I had initially was told to go home, and they were good without me. And then very last minute, I was doing a play off Broadway here in New York, and I got a call to come back in, and next thing I know, I'm flying out to San Francisco to shoot the pilot. But I always thought I was going to lose my job. I never thought, I always thought they were going to find someone more, I don't know, interesting or something. And
like halfway through an episode, they're going to be like, we're going to replace you. Someone's going to play your character.
Yeah, no, I shot the pilot, and I thought when the show got picked up to series that I would be replaced by, I don't know by whom, but I just thought I'd be replaced.
Who did you think could replace you? Did you ever have fantasies over who might replace you?
I'm sort of scared to even hypothesize.
Just like, it's like a scared actor running down a list, like, I know he would do better.
Yeah.
That person's great. Yeah.
Totally. So I can't. It was a bit nerve-wracking, but luckily they kept me.
Oh, I'm curious, as an actor, what's it like for you to audition for something that you kind of already had a part in beforehand? I mean, it's one thing to show up blind to an audition, do it for them, and then you walk away. You don't really have any buy-in on that or sort of emotional stake. Did you feel like you had, they sort of owed you this part, or did you feel not owed you the part, but felt some more stakes in it?
Well, I took part in the short film because Michael Landon, who created the show, asked me to participate in it. We had mutual friends, and he had seen me in a film that I did and asked me to do the short film. And I went into expecting nothing. I just appreciated the story he was telling. It was sort of about these three friends that were, discussing their romantic lives, and then it cuts to this post-coital scene between these two guys sharing an intimate moment in what was otherwise just a hookup. So the story was really fascinating to me, and the character was different than anything I'd seen. But I didn't go into it expecting to get cast in an HBO series. I just did a short film for the sake of it. And then once the series became a thing, I thought I had a better shot than I had previously. But I didn't go into it expecting anything. So it was.
Even when they cast you, you still thought they were going to cast somebody else instead of you.
Nothing's guaranteed. So.
You're a playwright, right?
That's right.
You've written and produced. How many plays have you written and produced now?
I've had a couple of plays. I've had one actually not too far from here at the Public Theater, and another in Chicago last year.
Is that your first love, would you say, or would you say acting is your first?
I started acting, but I didn't think that there was a lot of room for an actor like myself in the world. So I started writing stories.
What do you mean, an actor like yourself?
I had terrible diction growing up, and I didn't have the polish that I thought actors needed to make it in the business. So I started writing in an effort to kind of create worlds and stories that felt more familiar to me. And I was sort of inspired by guys like John Leguizamo or Anna Devere Smith, who are these actors who have written their own material. Even though I never really acted in my own plays, I sort of wanted to tell stories because I didn't see enough stories representing the community that I came from.
So you look at someone like John Leguizamo and sort of other very few Hispanic playwrights.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
storytellers and filmmakers for that matter.
For sure.
So what was it like for you? What stories were you drawn to when you started writing plays?
Well, I'm from a very small town in South Texas, a border town. My family's from northern Mexico, and I was very interested in the border as a setting, literary setting. And certainly I wanted to see bilingual stories. I wanted to see more Latinos up on stage. I wanted to see more diverse representations of what it is to be an American, because I think that we're very limited, and the stories that are out there are very limited, and I'm excited by the sort of more diverse representation that's being put out now.
Raul, I have to ask you, as a Mexican American who's interested in diverse representation and making sure that there's representation out there, how are you feeling this week going into the Republican National Convention when a large portion of America is being represented by a man who has referred to Mexicans in derogatory racist terms very publicly?
I feel like that's a lot of noise, and people want to, sell books or I don't understand a lot of that nonsense. I think it's trying to galvanize a lot of the American public based on ignorance, and fortunately, there's enough of us in the community that represent other narratives and not just the ones that are being put forth by candidates out there.
Absolutely, thank you. Sorry, it's an obsession of mine, and I'm like a oversensitive white guy who was watching the RNC yesterday and freaking out. And when I talk to someone who's an actual Mexican American who is concerned with representation, I'm like, "What? You must be going crazy right now. I'm going crazy." Seems like you're handling it.
Yeah, but it's nothing. Well, it's nothing new. If it were like brand new, then it would be surprising. But that's been going on for ages, and I feel like the stories that are being put out there in that way or by certain candidates are like
just a little bit louder than usual.
Yeah, exactly.
What is your writing process like? What sort of stories are you drawn to?
Actually, not all that dissimilar from the stories on Looking, and I'm interested in real human stories, and I'm sort of interested in stories that illuminate the human condition and what it is to be alive in this day and age.
You just finished, it just aired Special Correspondence, the Ricky Gervais film that you're in with America Ferrera. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What was it like working with Ricky Gervais?
It was, I think, everything you would imagine it to be. It was a riot. It was a lot of laughs. I've never laughed that much on set. There was a lot of improvisation, and it was intimidating at first, but we had such a good time, and Ricky sort of makes you feel like you're like the funniest person in the room, and I had a great time. I've never laughed that much on set.
I'm going to open up to the audience for some questions. Does anyone have any questions out there?
My question is, what is your process to get into character? And as you said earlier, you do theater, so is that process of getting into a character the same with theater and with film?
Well, theater and film are such different beasts. I think with film, you're on location and you're in environments that are not so easily controlled. And in theater, you get your dressing room or your backstage area, and you have your routine, and you go to the theater every day at a certain time, and you have a certain amount of time to prepare. But with film, you have to be ready for all kinds of variables. I think if anything, it's a matter of staying focused, but also staying loose and open to whatever presents itself that's not easily predictable, which a lot of times when you're working in TV and film and you're out like on location, there's so much that isn't predictable. So it's about, I think, staying focused, but also staying open to the unpredictable variables, for sure.
Next question.
Hi, my
Hi.
question for you is, have you ever read a script that you wish you would have wrote for yourself or wrote for someone else?
Yeah, God, have I I'm trying to think of, I think I can't think of a script that I've read that I wish I had written. I think every voice, I'm always excited by new voices and new writers and the way that different people see the world, and that's unique to them. And I think that's why I got into acting and to theater and to film, as because I came from such a small town that I think I learned so much about what it is to be a human being by the stories that I chose to be a part of and the scripts that I read. So I'm always surprised and excited by new scripts. I can't think of a particular script though that I wish I had written.
Is there a part that you grew up with that you saw in a movie that you sort of, when you look to scripts now and you look at parts, that's the end all be all part that you'd love to play?
Well, Dog Day Afternoon is always, I always go back to Al Pacino and
Someone brought up Dog Day Afternoon the other day on the stage, and I thought, man, it's just the best movie. Yeah.
I'm sort of sitting. I'm shooting a film right now, and it's sort of around Brooklyn-based characters, and I've been watching that film a bit. So Pacino's always an inspiration, but Leguizamo. I mean, there's so many guys. Benicio del Toro, there's Jeffrey Wright. I can think of a million actors that inspire me.
I love John Cazale in Dog Day Afternoon.
Yes,
yeah, he's
absolutely.
Just hanging out in the back and screwing everything up, blundering around, but being so believable and human.
Yeah, he made 5 films, and I think they were all Oscar nominated.
That's true, right? Yeah. Dog Day.
Deer Hunter, The Godfathers, and I think The Conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a run.
Yeah.
And then he married Meryl Streep.
That's right. Or Meryl Streep married him, I don't know.
Yeah, no one marries Meryl Streep, that's true. I think we have time for one more question.
Hey, Raul. Are there any roles or characters that you found really challenging that you played? And do you feel like there's more diverse or options that you have now as you've gotten more experience?
I mean, being a part of Looking I think there was a great responsibility and take on a role like Richie, especially as a straight guy, that I wanted to kind of honor the sort of experience that Richie was bringing to the table and the sort of story we could tell with him. And I knew that I had a lot to learn about what it is to be a gay man in this world, and there was great responsibility with that, and I felt a great sense of responsibility. But I've learned so much about what it is to be a human being from this character. So, not necessarily a challenge, but if anything, it sort of was an invitation to learn about someone who perhaps has had a different experience than I've had in the world.
How did you set about trying to learn about the community when you jumped into Looking? Was it about talking to the writers and the directors and the people on the show?
I sort of take it one episode at a time. I mean, if anything, I watched Weekend, which was the film that Andrew Haigh did before he came on as showrunner of Looking, and I think that freed me. I think watching Weekend freed me from playing any kind of preconception or any kind of trope. So that I could just bring myself to the character, and I didn't have to play any kind of ideas of what I thought it was to be a gay man, and I could just bring myself. And every episode and every kind of new storyline taught me a little bit more about this particular gay man, not about the whole community, because I think it's hard to reduce an entire community to one character or even 3 characters or 5 characters. I think what the show tried to do with these few characters was address a lot of issues that are going on within the LGBT community. But we only have 8 or 10 episodes a season.
And I think also what the show did which is so wonderful, is that it never felt, as much as it addressed issues, it never felt issue-oriented, which was always such a sort of problem with LGBT content throughout the 90s, was that like the only way that you could get it made was to sort of fit into the death narrative.
Yeah,
it was such an issue for so long when it came to telling those stories.
Completely. And it's the same with Latinos. I mean, it's the same with any marginalized community. There's such a need for more diverse representation, and whenever you have a story people want to compartmentalize, and even as a playwright, I'm more drawn to yes, I'm interested in putting Latinos on stage, but I'm not interested in issue-oriented plays or stories. I'm more interested in sort of what it is to be a human being.
Like a person falling in love that happens to be Latino.
That's right.
How is their experience? How is the experience of falling in love different for this particular Latino man
That's
or
right.
woman? You know,
Absolutely.
Whereas I think the narrative, even in the '90s, the narrative of that would have been added to some sort of odd struggle that was trying to sort of pinpoint the one narrative of the Latino community.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And people would always ask me if I was a little bit worried about being pigeonholed, playing a gay character. And I mean, I keep alluding to this, but if anything, the character of Richie and the show as a whole has sort of opened up doors for me because the character was so three-dimensional and had such a, I think, complex humanity. That if anything, it's opened up more doors and for me professionally, and so it's been more illuminating than limiting.
Absolutely, for me as a viewer too.
That's great.
And the movie airs this weekend, right? This
That's
Saturday at 10.
That's right. That's
All right,
right.
Raul, congratulations! Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much.